Hello, beautiful, and welcome to the podcast where we're moving the conversation forward about the choices you make in your daily life. I'm your host, Monica Cox, and I'm here right alongside of you, learning, growing, observing, and trying to make better choices consciously and subconsciously. Together, we're going to become better versions of ourselves and have raw, honest, open conversations about the things that truly affect our lives. And maybe, just maybe, finally get to a place where everyone else's BS doesn't trigger us. But is there a cancer gene?
So I know, Jaclyn, you're going to have probably lots to say about that. I did do genetic testing and counseling, and I do have the BRCA2 mutation, which not the one, but the two, which correlates with my body's ability for the DNA to repair is not as great as maybe the average person without the BRCA2. I've thought a lot about that because some people will say, well, I have the genetics for it. There's nothing I could have done. I just chose to look at it as not as a victim role. Like, yes, I have certain genetics that have predisposed me to getting cancer, but I just look at that as like, some people say that's only like a 5% that it's contributory. So I looked at it as my house. You talked, Jaclyn, about the contributory factors, correct? Right. We found mold in our kitchen. There was a leak, right? That was going on for a while. The year or two before I was diagnosed, we were remodeling our kitchen. It took forever, right? It was during COVID times. My son got really sick during COVID times, and he was only, I think, a year and a half, and we had to go. He had a seizure, a high fever seizure, and I had to go with him to the ER. And it was during COVID times, and it was masked up, and my husband couldn't even go in. That was extremely stressful for me. Mm-hmm. So I had a number of extremely stressful events leading up to my diagnosis. And then the mold, right? And so we know that all these things can kind of contribute. So didn't want to make it sound earlier that it's just like relational unhappiness. I think with cancer is very complex, mm-hmm. and there are genetics that play into it, as well as environmental things like molds, right? Being exposed to mold, how your immune system is constantly having to fight against exposures to things, right? Yeah, it can be really complex, but that's what I learned. I did some genetic counseling, and I realized I do have cancer on both sides of my family. My grandfather died early, but I don't think it's the be all end all. I think it's how you choose to view it. And I do a lot of things to help my DNA repair, right? Because I know that that's a thing now. So mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. How about you? I know you have probably a lot to say about that. Maybe that's your specialty.
I do not feel that there is really a single gene for something. I'd say you have the genetic predispositions, which is, the genetics loads the gun and the environment pulls the trigger. And so the more predispositions you have, the easier that trigger is pulled. Because there's a lot of other genes that are involved with DNA repair. And there's also, toxic exposure. So if you have poor detoxification along with the poor DNA repair, then the toxins are going to just, add insult to injury. So no, I don't think that there is a single cancer gene. Just to answer your question.
I found out that I do have MTHFR. I just recently found that out through my wonderful oncologist that I love so much. She looks for that kind of stuff. But so there's that. I had miscarriages in the past, and I didn't even know that was something that I had until recently.
Yeah.
My dad jokingly had said, he definitely thought he was a funny man. He said that, well, honey, our gene pool is a cesspool and there ain't no lifeguard. And it's kind of true, at least I've seen my genetics. I've looked at, hundreds of thousands of my SNPs. And mine are a bit more variated than all of my clients that I look at. But maybe that's one thing that sort of drew me to the work that I'm in, is just inherently knowing that I had to be more proactive against these toxins and, nutrient deficiencies and that kind of stuff. So who knows?
Yeah, yeah. And it's really interesting when you start studying epigenetics. I don't know if you guys got a chance to listen to that video clip that I sent to you guys about endometriosis, and the doctor talking about how, it was they thought it was really random that endo can start growing like on the outside of your lungs and all that, but then he like traced it back to the developing embryo and certain layers in the embryo at a certain stage, and it's the ability of all these toxins to break the placenta barrier, to go into that embryo development. And, this is, I think, why we're so passionate for fertility, is like, it starts so much earlier than people think. And what we haven't realized is that every generation, if they're not conscious, just gets worse and worse and passes it down and passes it down. And then all of a sudden we're getting our generation, right? The Gen Xers, older millennials, who are dealing with things in our 30s, 40s that we technically shouldn't be dealing with. History has really been like, okay, maybe your 50s, 60s, 70s, you deal with these issues. Like the thing that scares me the most is like, Jesus, what is the larger population who aren't conscious of this, right? We're not saying we can prevent any of it, obviously. We know that now, but we're conscious that we're doing our best, that we're going to give our children the fighting chance that if it does come up, right? There's prostate cancer on my husband's side, grandfather, father, his brothers dealt with it. He'll probably deal with it. My sons will probably deal with it. But at what extent, like you guys now know, are they going to have to deal with it? And I think that's really important for people to realize, is that it's not set in stone either. Genetics can change, right? They can change in the womb. So if you are like, okay, I have this, maybe you're thinking about having children, like what can you do to set your children up for a better chance at it? Okay, that's the scientific stuff. We'll leave that one there. But when you get a diagnosis or when you go through something traumatic like this, it's all about choices, right? You start to choose how you're going to move through it and choose the meaning that you give it, right? Everything happens for a reason type of quote, right? And when you're in the thick of it, sometimes you just want to punch someone in the face when they say that. But when you start moving through your journey and you realize like, okay, I can choose why this happens, right? And you can literally make it up. Like it really doesn't matter what you give to it. But how do you think giving it a more positive, more loving, more joyful, more learning, experience towards it, what does that not only do for when you're in the thick of it, but when you're coming out of it and then moving on with life?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I've just my clear CT scan was just 2 weeks ago, so this is really fresh for me. Thank you.
Yay!
I feel like it's an opportunity to live life with more freedom, with more expression, with more love. When I was doing chemo, I would instantly connect with the woman next to me, and I felt a feeling of oneness with them that I can't describe. Everything just goes away. Anything that's non-important, right? Politics, color, whatever, like disagreements or the way that we view things all go completely away. All that matters is the love and connection between two human beings, right? That's why we're on this planet, is to love each other and be connected. So I think moving forward, now that my heart space is clear, that the tumors are literally removed, I see it as a clear, the light and love of God is able to more clearly enter my heart space because of the tumors are cleared out and it's open and free, and the light enters through my crack, which is my scar, kind of like that Japanese concept of a broken bowl. You fill it with gold, it becomes more valuable. That's the kind of stuff that helps me when I have hard days. When I look at my scars, and it's like the trauma of when you treat cancer, it's very traumatic. Not only just being diagnosed with cancer, but the treatment for cancer from a Western perspective is actually very harsh. It's like you're at war. And I remember feeling one time with chemo, with the AC, I felt like with the fourth one, which knocked me out the most, I remember feeling like laying in bed, it did get to me. I was feeling weak, and I remember feeling like this is fucking killing me. It's killing the cancer cells, but it felt like it was harsh, right? And so I think it makes you a lot stronger. Obviously, it changes your perspective, connection with other human beings. I mean, I would see a woman in the chemo room and we would instantly be praying together and connecting. And I really developed some beautiful relationships. My relationship with my husband is so much more intimate and beautiful. Kind of like the Marvin Gaye song, the sexual healing. Like, we had some of the best sex we ever had while doing chemo. Okay. Let's just put it out there. Okay. So it doesn't have to be like this horrible thing. You can choose to have the intimacy. And I just remember, because it's amazing, feeling like, wow, I get to experience this even in the harshest days where I feel knocked down. This is the beauty that still exists. Even in this world and this diagnosis and all the harsh treatments, I get to enjoy this connection. It's here for me. So really allowing the connection of us, we've had, it's been incredible for us. So I think your perspective is everything. How you choose to see yourself through the process, allowing people to help, like the kindness that people extended, just like you said, Jaclyn, like people like a neighbor that wasn't even a close friend, dropping off meals, dropping off green juices, dropping off gift cards for my favorite restaurant, organic restaurant. I mean, it was there's so much beauty that, and I just feel like all my relationships are so much deeper and more meaningful. And I've shed my ego, and I've just shed the judgment. I was critical and judgmental. And even of people doing Western medicine, sometimes being a natural practitioner, I've shed that. I don't judge anybody about anything now. It's a really free and beautiful way to live and place to be. And I think that the rest of my life will be incredibly more beautiful and happier, and just the harmony in my home for my kids as they move forward and they see harmony between my husband and I, and they see I'm so much more loving and giving towards them. And it's just been a journey. It's been really, really hard, really, really hard. But my friends and family have definitely carried me through, and I thank you, God. Yeah. I used to blast gospel music on the way to my oncologist appointment. People would be like looking at me, like I'd be on the freeway, just like singing out loud and like building myself up on the way to chemo. And I'd bring my doctor flowers and chocolates and notes, and like, you make it what you want to make it.
Yeah.
Right.
So my dad has been recently diagnosed with prostate cancer. And we've had some pretty good conversations, within the family with us and stuff. And my mom said, I asked this as a kid too, and me and my dad this has been a conversation of, why does it take something so horrible to quote unquote wake people up or bring them back, or like a family member hasn't spoken to you in a decade because whatever, you didn't cook the chicken right, like, I don't know, and then all of a sudden, oh, you're super sick, you're about to die, okay, we need to rekindle our relationship. Or a spouse, like your spouse going like, okay, I'll wake up, everything that you've been asking me to do, quitting the drinking, taking responsibility, I'll do it now for you because you're on your deathbed, type of thing. What's your perspective now living through it? Why does it take that much to wake people up? Because it's very rare that someone makes those big decisions for themselves, right? It almost seems like there has to be this tragic event, like fertility was mine, like I wasn't gonna wake up. If I had kids like normally, like I would have never been here sat here having this conversation with you guys, right? But what's your perspective of that in this journey of being human?
Real short answer for me is that when you think you have a million tomorrows, then you can put stuff off and deal with the stressors and daily things of today, and not see a bigger picture, and not see that life is finite. And actually, my father's death from cancer impacted me and my perspective on life and living far more than my own cancer did, because he is gone from my life now. Mm-hmm. And so, like, for me, it was just me and my journey. Whereas for him, it's like, well, he's gone and my days were numbered, and now my days with my kids are numbered. And it is, you get back into the busyness and daily routines and you sort of forget it all. But something like that just makes it impossible to ignore it, at least for that time being.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, that's such a great question, Monica. That's like such a brilliant question. I think it's complex to answer, to be honest, but I think for me, it was, I don't know. I think life happens and you're busy raising 3 kids and you have work goals and you're doing all these things and you're juggling all these things. And before you know it, your nervous system is dysregulated. And for me, the biggest thing was like, okay, after cancer, it was like, I need to regulate my nervous system. I think we're drawn to things that we actually need ourselves. So as an acupuncturist, I help people regulate their nervous system, and like, that's what I needed the most. Right. And I loved nurturing and helping people de-stress and, regulate their nervous system. And so it's like what I was giving others is what I needed the most, was that nurturing and that, and also just giving myself permission to focus on my mental and emotional health. I think not like sideswiping that and going, oh, well, these, eating is, is important and all that, but actually going, no, like this is actually a huge part of health. And I deserve, like my husband and I looked at him, I said, we deserve better. And that's kind of like our motto. And I was like, yeah, we are allowed to experience the fullness of joy and vitality. So if you're a person that's feeling constantly stressed, like your nervous system is fucking always out of whack, right? Like pay attention to that, right? Like from me having gone through so many hard things out, it's my heart for you is just, if you're listening, it's like, pay attention to that. You're worthy of rest and figuring that out, and be honest with yourself. If something's not working in a relationship, don't ignore it or stuff it or try to cry and not figure it out. Go to counseling. So like I go to counseling now, and I've done EMDR to help with the trauma of it all, and I'm getting better and I feel healthier than I've ever been mentally. So yeah, pay attention to that stuff. Don't keep on juggling and thinking that, oh, we'll get to it, emotional health, oh, whatever. It's like, it's super important.
Yeah.
So
It's that radical responsibility. And I feel like a lot of people like we don't, and we don't want it though, right? Until life like really makes us take responsibility of it. It's so easy just to push aside, and it's accepted by society because you're still achieving, you're still successful, you have all these things. Where if let's just say like your husband, or like let's say my husband, he's an accomplished pilot, and if he was like, I need a mental health break, I'm going to take a year off, people would be like, what the fuck, you're weird. Right? Instead of like, oh, well, good on you for taking care of your health and actually not putting all those hundreds of people in danger. Like, but if he just, and this is not him, right? But like, if he just continues on and continues on, society be like, yeah, well done. Yeah, that's what a man does, or a woman. I mean, it's the same, right? And so society praises us for all these like almost these made up accomplishments, and I think it's getting better. I really do. I think people are more willing and accepted of like mental health and what it is. And I think we have to be, because here we all are in our 40s, sick as fuck, right? And unhappy, not fulfilled. And we're just waking up and going, hey, this isn't working, right? And sometimes, go ahead, Jaclyn.
I feel like in our society, I've seen that as a nutritionist too, just people wait until the train has hit them or is about to hit them before they are proactive about whether it's fertility or nourishing their body and eating properly or addressing some trauma. Like they just wait until it's screaming and or has already done the damage, and then they sort of want to go back and explore. Sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
so
exactly.
Having gone through what I've gone through with a double mastectomy and 16 rounds of chemo, like, do the work, guys. Do it. I'm begging you, do it. Pay attention. Yeah.
I mean, I guess at my journey now, right, and knowing so many people who have gone through cancer, are going through cancer, going through hard times, right? Like I'm trying to show up for myself better, because like when you're radically honest and you can listen to your body, everyone can look at me and knows I have a good lifestyle. You can't fault my diet. You can't fault that. But I know there's, stressful, dealing with my father's diagnosis and wanting to be there and being part of the family and all that stuff. It's just this added on stress. And if I ignore it, then it's just going to accumulate, right? And when you get in tune with your body, and I guess maybe that's why fertility set me up, I was like, man, I had a horrible period last month. Like, I shouldn't have a horrible period. Like, what's going on? Oh, okay, yeah. The last 3 months have been pretty stressful, right? And that's what I say to people. No amount of healthy diet is gonna negate that mental, emotional, and physical stress on your body. And you have to be that radically self-honest. And if you can't be, pay someone to do it for you, to call you out on your bullshit.
For sure, for sure. I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. I'll definitely keep him in my prayers.
Oh, thank you.
It's hard. It's so hard on the whole family.
Yeah, it's a very interesting process, as you both know, have lived through with yourselves and your family and stuff. And once again, I just am showing up and choosing to go, okay, what's the lesson here for me? Because it's not my journey, right? Like, it's not my responsibility to fix anything. It's not my responsibility to do anything but be a supportive part of the family. And so, yeah, it's just interesting to go, okay, what am I gonna learn here?
I think one of the things that's helped me is a realization that joy and grief can coexist.
Mm-hmm.
I really discovered that through some reading and deep diving throughout my journey when I was going through the harshness of chemo, and I would dance and still have joy, right? And 5 minutes of funny with my son and laughed. It was just like I didn't realize they could coexist. Like the deep grieving of what's happened to my body and also experiencing joy, they can coexist. So that would be just a tip for you, is finding that, like, you are going to grieve and it's going to be hard. There's no getting around that. It's hard. Life is harsh.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's also, they can coexist for you. So I challenge you to, through this process with your dad, still find that joy. I know you do with your kids. I feel like that's the antidote to the stress of the grief. And I think they can coexist.
Yeah. I just had a good friend on before this talking about the grief of losing a baby at 3 months old. And that was one of the things, in his journey, that he realized that to remember the good times and that it was okay to be happy and joyful without her earth side, right? And that's what she would really want for them, right? No one wants anyone to be miserable and just stuck in that pit of hell, but also we know radical responsibility, you got to get yourself out of there because no one's going to do it for you.
That's right.
Yeah. Is there any kind of last notes that you really wanted to bring to this conversation about your own personal journey or what you discovered during this time?
You can see cancer as an opportunity for a rebirth. You can really let go old ways of being and doing, just like I used with the wigs as an opportunity to explore different personas, different alter egos. I gave myself permission to be somebody new. Ways that weren't working for me, I was able to shed, and that takes work. For me, the wigs were kind of a playful way of doing that, exploring different parts of my personality that I'd like to see more of, different parts of my personality that I'd like to show up, right? And really allowing myself to experience joy and happiness. Yeah. I think the greatest is allowing that exchange of love, right? From God, our source, from our friends and family, and then allowing it to come back out to others is really a beautiful exchange. We know that, like with cancer and the voltage and electricity in the body and the heart being an electrical system, how important love is. Right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely. And I think too, I think too that a lot of women, we just blocked it off. That's what we were, and men, God, all of us. Like, we all built these walls around receiving and giving in a pure and authentic way, right? In a service way, not for reward. And I definitely think that is once you can discover that and break down those walls, I do think life radically changes in so many different ways. Yeah.
Yeah. Raising your vibration is super important. That's like the biggest, like that's part of it, right? The love of raising your vibration.
Yeah. But explain that more, because I think that's such like a catchy phrase, like just raise your
Yeah,
vibration,
sure.
right?
Yeah, like the pH of the cells with cancer are low acidity and not oxygen rich, right? Right, Jaclyn? And so I think we sometimes underestimate how emotional health is a part of our electrical system of our body, right?
Mhm.
The electrical change. And so they find that with low voltage things, it's like low oxygen, low pH, right? So that's what I mean by raise the vibration, is focus on things that really do change the alkalinity in your cells and the electricity in your body, right? Allowing a clear signal for your body for health, because the cells are communicating to each other. And
Yeah.
so that's why I think music and vibration, all of that really plays into healing. And I used a ton of music in my healing.
Mhm.
I didn't mention that, but just like listening to music all day long and
Yeah.
520 hertz and all that to, calm the nervous system and allow my nervous system to regulate, because it's trauma. It's a lot of trauma. So working
Yeah.
through the diagnosis, you're not just the diagnosis, but the trauma of treatment. So
Mhm.
I'm continuing to do counseling and continue to do these things, even though I'm 3 months post chemo. I'm not going to stop. I know that from a Western perspective, once somebody gets a diagnosis of you're clear, no evidence of disease, people kind of stop maybe doing those things. So my message is one to, take the takeaways from these things and then continue to incorporate them into your lifestyle of raising your voltage, your vibration. We're electrical beings,
Yeah.
right?
And that's
So,
easier to do. And I'm sure you've discovered in your journey when you ditch the baggage that's bringing you down in the first place, all that subconscious belief, all that stuff you didn't realize was there contributing to the final outcome. I think that's the key, like missing thing when people are like, just raise your vibration. It's like, well, some people like have a lot of baggage. It's really hard for them to raise their vibration.
I think it's being radically honest with yourself
Mm-hmm.
about yourself, right? Like
Yeah.
radically honest and raw in your relationships and your health and your happiness. And yeah, I mean, letting go of unforgiveness and bitterness and resentment. When I feel that pattern going towards the past, my husband and I look at each other and we're like, nope, we're new people, right?
Yeah,
Rebirth.
absolutely.
So not allowing to go back into the past, just moving present moment, moving towards the future.
Yeah, absolutely. How about you,
Joy,
Jaclyn?
Joy, that is just so beautiful. You already were just such a kind, beautiful person, but your soul is just like amazingly beautiful. And I love that you're sharing this, and I think that you need to share this with everybody, because I think everybody could use that energy for sure. And to be honest, I for a while was very much in fear of the cancer coming back, because I was like, I'm not done with my journey. I haven't explored all of the things. And so the cancer is going to come back, because I haven't, like, I see these people like Joy that like their cancer just radically changed their life and their energy and their outlook. And I still have some stuff that is not, quite there, but at least it's now like on the table for me to know and to constantly be working through it. Whereas before, like you said, I could have just ignored it or dealt with it tomorrow or the next day. But there was a very real fear. It was like an emotional, PTSD kind of thing, because I just felt like, well, I haven't arrived at this stage of enlightenment, and so the cancer is going to come back. And so it was something that I had to work through for sure. And it is, it's a work in progress for me. And so I love that, Joy. I love every word that you shared, and it's just re-inspiring me as well, because I'm 3 years out. And so, things are kind of, in a way, there's some things that are just, back to daily life, but then there's still this part of me that has lived that and walked that journey and experienced that and is holding on to those lessons, I guess I can call them, that I experienced.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's really important to understand, is that, I mean, for me, like, I didn't realize how much trauma I had from IVF, and all those medical procedures, because people don't talk about it. People don't talk about the trauma that you go through. And so you're holding on to these things, not realizing it. And then you have that fear. You couple with that fear of like, oh, it's going to happen again because, and look, we're all still like getting enlightenment, right? Like we're all still on this journey, and you are where you need to be, right? And you will get to where you're going to go because you are that type of person. And I think all three of us here, you know, succeed at life because we're always reaching for like, okay, what's the next level, right? We're like in the Mario video game. I want to power up. I want some more mushrooms, right? Like we're always like,
Literally.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
So, but I think it's really important for people to realize, Joy, just like you say, just because you walk through it and you survived it does not mean it's time to just leave it. The body keeps score, and until you address it, it will stay with you, and fingers crossed it doesn't manifest into another physical issue that you have to fight through. But yeah, it's just being conscious. You have that conscious awareness. And I think for most people who have been through traumatic events, hopefully we can learn from our past and go, okay, I'm not going to let it get as bad as it did before. I'm going to move through. Because it's scary to get there. But the more you break through those like scary moments and fight through the fear, what's the famous quote? Feel the fear and do it anyways. It gets easier. You're like, oh yeah, that looks scary over there. Yeah, that's not as bad as last time. Like that's going to be easy. But yeah, just keep radically showing up for yourself is the key.
I think allowing those emotions too, and not expecting
Mhm.
yourself to we're human, just having a lot of grace, allowing. We're going to have days where we're scared the fuck out of our minds. It's just the honest truth. I mean, I had a period before my CT scan where I coughed up some blood and I had the flu and I thought that I was dying. And that was just a month ago. And I freaked the fuck out. And I told my oncologist I need a CT scan. We're going to have these really scary moments where the trauma is going to come up, and we have to find ways to nourish our bodies and minds and get back to that calm state. And I was like, wow, okay, I understand what people, when they're done with cancer treatment or they're done with all the stuff, that there's anxiety. So give yourself grace. Anxiety is going to come up. And now I'm like, okay, anxiety is going to come up probably for for my life. And I'm going to have to find ways to manage that. And I'm okay. And I have the tools. I know the tools to use for that. And so we all are equipped with a lot of tools, and not ignoring is so important. So nootropics, the area, new study of how we can affect our brain. And I would say that's a great field for people that are wanting to help with the brain chemistry health. It's like, don't ignore brain chemistry, right? So get the help, the talk therapy and all that stuff. And then I would say if anybody's listening to this, for just a last kind of thing, is don't wait to seek help. I feel like I don't live in regret, but if I could do things differently, I would have sought more Western help sooner. I was like, oh, I'm naturally minded. I can take all these things and things are going to get better. I ended up with 9 tumors and 10 lymph nodes and stage 3B cancer, like take charge. Don't let fear dominate. And
Yeah,
I think I can do, but go back and change how I would have done things. So I would say, yeah, if you feel a lump, yeah, as scary as it was for me to walk into an oncology office and do all that, do it. Right. You can always say no to whatever treatments they have, but just hear everybody out. Like, I had a lot of judgments towards Western medicine. I was scared. I was raised in a very naturally minded family, so I was scared of Western medicine. And I told my doctor after a bit, I was like, you're not so scary after all. Like, I love you. So, sometimes it's embracing the thing that you're scared about. Maybe it's Eastern medicine or natural medicine, or looking at the, going into, a counselor, whatever it is that you're scared of, just face it, do it.
Yeah. So I don't know why this popped up into my head. It's like so irrelevant, but my 3 boys, my husband, he's one of my boys, they all got sick, but my youngest got it the last, and he got it the worst. And I was looking at him and I was like, God, I got to take you to the hospital, because it takes a lot to get to the hospital for me and my kids, and they rarely go because we're fairly healthy. But it is that moment of like, take your kid to the damn hospital because he needs assistance. He needed antibiotics. Would he have cleared it himself? Yeah, probably. But would it taken 2 weeks? Could it manifested in something worse? How to fix gut health. He'll just had some more sauerkraut, you use it. Don't be scared of it. I know we all went through that journey. I went through it with, fertility and stuff is just like, it's there. And thank God it's there. Thank God we're living in a time that we have these treatments that can support us, and that we're gaining the wisdom of the Eastern medicine back and marrying them two together. Because the reality is, Eastern medicine won't work on Western problems because it was developed before the West was developed. So it's there as this very supportive measure. You know, I get women, and I know you guys have seen it, with full-blown autoimmune issues. You know, like, we have to treat it in a certain way with certain knowledge that wasn't invented when all this amazing Eastern medicine was invented. So they've got to be married together because that's the society that we're living in.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
good. A good point. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I know we can like sit here and talk like forever because we have done before. I miss seeing you guys like we used to, and I'm sure it will come back again. But I want to thank you so much for your time and just being radically honest and just sharing your experience and your wisdom and your knowledge with us. Where people can find you is down in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on. I forgot to tell this story. So we're coming back on. I'm going to record it, right? So you guys know I do Psych K, and Psych K is a modality that really just connects with source, subconscious, and energy, right? In my last training that I did, we do surrogacy. So we can actually step into someone's field and muscle test on their behalf. There's a relationship balance that you can do, and you can surrogate for someone. There's a woman who was, I don't want to say at the tail end. She wasn't in the thick of her journey, but she wasn't at the end of her journey with breast cancer. And her breast cancer, actually, she was a super hippie, you know, another one of the stories, right? And she wanted to do a relationship journey with cancer. So I surrogated for cancer. So when I tell you, that motherfucker was so cocky. Like, because when you surrogate for someone, it doesn't always happen, but sometimes you can get their mannerisms. You can like pick up on like how they feel. And fuck me, like, cancer was just so arrogant and so cocky. And it's a really interesting balance because you have to look into each other's eyes, which is uncomfortable for a lot of people, right? Like, it's really intimidating to sit there. And she wanted basically to know for herself really that cancer wasn't coming back. Like, it was not fucking welcomed, right? And it was weird because at first I was like, I'm coming back for you. I'm not leaving, right? And then you know, through the balance, and then it was just like, okay, you don't want me here, like, I have to go. And then I was bored, like, you know, the arrogancy, like when someone's like super cocky, and it was this like boredom feeling of like, okay, I don't want to do this balance anymore because I know that I'm not going to win, and I just wanted to leave, but it wasn't done yet. It was so crazy, um and so empowering. Like, obviously everyone's like in tears after it, and just like full body chills, you know. But yeah, I wanted to share that with you guys, that yeah, I mean, everything is an
It is
energy, right? Everything is energy. And it was very weird to like tap into that and feel it. And I'm sure it can feel very many different ways, but that's how I experienced it in that, like, in that setting. I had to share that with you guys.
Cancer is super humbling. I'm extremely humbled by the entire experience. And like, I have zero pride left, but cancer is aggressive and yeah, very like, wow, like that's such incredible work that you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to share that.
And I think that the people that explore everything and are open to everything are the people that have the greatest successes, because they're not going to die from their own arrogance. You know, like, I know everybody, when it's just like when you get pregnant, you know, or when you're having issues getting pregnant, when you have cancer, everybody has an opinion and they want to tell you what you should do. And like, I received it all, you know, like, you're telling me because you care, and I can do with it what I feel I need to do with it. So thank you very much for sharing that. It wasn't like, yeah, thanks. You know, it was like,
oh my God.
I
So I have like the full body chills here. And I think what it's trying to say is just to tap onto you, is that I succeeded in my journey because I was willing to try everything, like stupid stuff too, right? Like stuff that like actually did more harm to my body, but
Like
I
getting an
was
emotional support
willing.
animal.
Yeah. Like, and that is in a journey, if you drop your ego and your arrogancy and saying like, no, this is the way, or that's the way, that surrender piece, right? And willing to take inspired action and go, okay, that's amazing. It worked for you, but that didn't work for me. It didn't feel right, so I stopped it, or I don't even want to, but yes, absolutely 100%. Yeah.
Well, you had said when I was first diagnosed, I really appreciated you, Monica, because you sent me the tapping information, and I did utilize that in the healing journey with the red light, and I would do the tapping, and do you feel like it's valuable? So yeah, I mean, having an open mind and letting go of ego and pride, and just exploring it all when you have the energy to do so. I mean, sometimes that can be energetically exhausting to do it all. So do the things that you're drawn to, but yeah, it can be all really powerful.
Thank you so much again for joining us here on Choices. You can go ahead and leave a 5-star review because we're all friends here. But if you really want to move the conversation forward, please connect with us on our social media accounts, which you can find the links below. Have a beautiful week, and we'll see you next time here on Choices.